Welcome again, dear viewers, to our lovely Happy Chat, something we do every week with members of the entertainment fraternity. And now a brilliant guy, he'll tell me if I'm wrong, but I think a fellow Devonian, absolutely panto legend in the Birmingham Hippodrome. Will you please welcome the one and only Mr. Matt Slack. Hello, lover.
Yay, all right, my bird.
Hello, my bird. Oh, you are Devonian then?
You were spot on there, mate. Yes, and I tell you what, it's nice to hear another Devonian accent. I'm originally from Torbay.
Oh yeah,
born and interbred, as they say, down in Devon. Yeah. So yeah, I was born in Torbay, and I live in London now. I live in South London, but I don't often miss it, especially at the moment being in lockdown. I miss it.
Exactly. Well, I live in the middle of the country, but because my wife's from the northeast, I live in County Durham now. So I'm Exeter born and bred, as you say, but I'm living up in the northeast. But it's very similar in the way that it's beautiful countryside. It's just people don't talk proper up here. See, that's the main difference.
Do they understand you?
Not a lot. I was at a chip shop when we moved up. I'd been here about 6 months or something. I went in a chip shop, and the kids waiting for their chips are looking at me like I was from Mars. Not a clue. And when I don't know what it's like in Torbay, by the way, but in Exeter, the batter bits that you have with fish and chips, we call them gribbles. What do you call them?
Gribbles? Do you know? I don't know. Scraps, I think. I mean, no, that's a Yorkshire. That's a northern.
Very northern. My missus says scraps, and she's from the north end, or scrapings, but we call them gribbles.
Scraping. Yeah, to be honest, mate, I don't know. I never thought of that.
But do you? I mean, you're a London. Well, you're living in London. Do you get scraps with your fish and chips in London, or is it too hot?
Well, it's at the minute, mate. We can't get anything. It's all thank God for Deliveroo and Uber Eats and all that. And we do a lot of. We're just staying in, you know, as the rest of the country is. Everyone is. We're just doing a lot of cooking. So, if I do fish and chips, we'll do our own fish and chips.
Exactly. We do that. My missus is a great cook. So yeah, here's the whole point of chatting with you, wonderful people, is that we find a way to get by. We keep going. I mean, some people can work, which is fabulous, but without a stage and an audience, we really can't we? So
we can't, mate. It's very tough. I mean, it's I've done a lot of these, you know, Zooms and meetings and all that, and I've had castings. I tell you what's good about work, because obviously I do the panto and all that, and I've always kept that going, and that's blossomed and been, you know, my bread and butter. And that's kind of my job now. I spend all year writing and but the other side of my career is the straight drama and the, you know, the TV jobs, the acting. So any castings I get in, which is great. Last week when I spoke to you, when you first asked me and approached me to do this, I had an Emmerdale casting come in. So I'm just waiting to hear for that. So what's good now is you can sit at home, put this old Ring of Fire on, you can see it in my glasses, and you can do a casting and learn the script and, you know, and get it right, rather than going into a room and walking out going, oh bugger, I wish I'd have done it like that. Or do you know what I mean? So it's a blessing in disguise. It really is. So on that front, it's this is going to be the new norm. But as far as work goes, if you're a performer, and I mean, I don't gig anymore. I've not gigged for years.
Yeah,
I sort of left that now.
So why did you stop doing stand-up?
To be honest, mate, I've always had this burning sort of desire to act, to be an actor, and I kept thinking it was always a stepping stone. Doing the gigs, you know what you like. You schlep around the country, you do the clubs, you do holiday parks. I did theatre as well, and you know what it's like.
They love you, they hate you.
Exactly, and it's bloody hard work sometimes, you know. And I just thought I had, and I had a good safe act, really, if you can call it an act. But it always was quite safe because it was visual, you know. There's a lot of visual stuff, but I just got a bit sort of fed up with it, and I think I moved into musical theatre. In fact, the time I saw you, I was at the Blackpool Grand Theatre with Cannon and Ball, bless him, bless Bobby, and you were at the North Pier. I came to see you. I think Frank Carson, yeah. And oh God, you did make me laugh. Andy Ford, lovely, my lover, and that beautiful. But anyway, I went into musical theatre. I made the move into Boogie Nights, and I think that sort of
that's right. Yeah,
that's when I sort of went, this is what I want. So I sort of went, I've got to make a decision here. I had this same conversation with Billy Pearce years ago. He said, I think I really admire you for making the decision to go. I said, well, you've got to sometimes make a decision and go, I'm going to leave that alone and concentrate on this. And it's a very scary decision, but I made that decision. And I decided I'm not going to gig anymore. I'm going to keep myself open, but I'll still do the panto and pursue that and make that my main career. And then it frees me up for everything else, which it turns out after the stuff I've done.
It's my bedrock. Panto, if I know panto's in, and that takes care of a lot of the year's earnings, really. I mean, you don't get there without working hard to get there. But when you've got there, you want to look after it and own it and treasure it. And then we do the other stuff like I do. I write scripts and I'm writing songs for this musical I'm doing and stuff. So it allows. It's the gift that never stops giving. It gives when you're on stage, and it gives you a chance throughout the rest of the year to pursue other avenues.
Totally, mate. Well, again, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, a lot of people, I don't think they realise how substantial panto is. And when I had the conversation, I'm not saying everybody can not have to do anything the rest of the year, but I don't have to work the rest of the year. I've made that my job, and I've gone into directing as well. But I spend all year working. When you're a resident at a place, like I'm now 7 years in at Birmingham.
Yeah,
you've got to go back and you've got to come up with new stuff. And all of a sudden, it forces you to come up with new ideas and new routines that you've got to sort of regurgitate after 3 or 4 years, and so on and so on. But it's when you've got a real big following in a place, like you say, it is. I class that as my job now, and I'm lucky enough. It's lucrative enough to allow me to take a chance on other stuff and be available for other stuff throughout the year.
You earned it, mate. You got there because you earned it. I mean, I did 7 years at Bristol, and hoping to go back and do something with that. And you can't. They love you, but you can't be lazy, because if you're lazy, maybe they'll stop loving you. So, say April time, I'm speaking to my missus as I've got this idea for the song sheet. She said, "It's April. Has it started already?" And sort of, it has. Yeah. Do you write your own song sheets as well?
Yeah, mate. Well, I do. I have to. Obviously, that's one routine that you got to come up with new every year. So I try and do a new one every year, and it is a lot of hard work, and it's great. I mean, I have as we all do, as you do, you find a great rapport with the kids, but you've still got to come up with a new one every year. You can't just do that. That'll do, because what I've learned is with the audience, they love you, and if they love you, people say, "Oh, you could do anything." No, you've got to keep it up there. If you've raised the bar, you've got to keep the bar there, and it's got to keep going up and the pressure is incredible. It really is.
You've had this, I'm sure people said to me, "Oh, you could be funny reading the telephone book." You'd be fed up by halfway through the A's. Do you know?
Exactly.
It has to keep changing. Yes, we've got the personality that we take in. Ours is completely different from each other, which is great. In panto, one size doesn't fit all. There's plenty of room for personality, different personalities, but we still have to tick the same boxes you tick and I tick, and that's adults enjoy it, kids enjoy it, grandparents enjoy it without being too embarrassed. The warmth, the breaking of the fourth wall, everything that's all the same, but it comes in different boxes. We present stuff completely different, and it's great to have that unit to work with, but it's got to do something different every year.
Well, it is, mate, because I mean, you know what it's like. People come up afterwards and they say, "Oh, I loved it when you did that. I loved it. I can't wait to see what you're going to do next." And that pressure is on you, and it does literally start. I remember having a conversation. Michael Harrison, Michael, the the boss at Kudos, who I work very closely with, putting the shows together, and we work very well together. He messaged me on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
You know, on during a run, Christmas Day. Bearing in mind, Christmas Day is my first proper day off because we open so late in Birmingham. We don't open until like the 19th or 20th. So, and we go right through to the end of January because of the ballet. Damn you, ballet. Anyway, so he messaged me on Christmas Day with an idea, and I said, that's very nice. Yeah, Merry Christmas. Have a nice day off, you know. But that's what it's like. It's a continuing, even when the show's up and running, I'm starting to think, can't switch it off. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword because it's lovely, because when you go out, you know what it's like yourself. You said at Bristol, you get the applause is quite overwhelming. The response, the welcome, the love the audience give you on your opening entrance is incredible. And I never, ever take it for granted, and I never get used to it. It's amazing. But you know, you've got to keep that up. You've got to keep that going. And that's why it's a double-edged sword. And you want to do your best because you're only as good as your last show. And that is such a true saying. It really is.
Yeah, well, what I'm finding fascinating is, I mean, there may be some people watching this and don't really know a lot about panto. All they know about panto is what they used to read in the papers a few years ago. Your career, it's behind you. You know, it's a blank check for a sportsman. But I think panto, as it always has done throughout time, has evolved in a way that it's become a more stronger and accepted art form now.
Yeah, it's really, I think the last over a period of the last 10 years, 8 to 10 years, it's really been recognized by, you know, there's been a lot of highbrow theatre people and critics that, oh, it's only panto. It's not only panto. I'll tell you what it only is. It's only the only genre of performance which you have to entertain a full family. You know, you're talking 3-4 generations sometimes, and the art of making kids laugh and adults laugh without dropping your trousers and shouting, you know what, you know, it's an art form in itself. We're telling fairy tales, we're telling stories in a very, very difficult environment, a PC world. So you can't say that. It's really hard, and they're not just. Yeah, don't get me wrong. You can see a cheap production panto down the road and pay £5 a ticket. Or you can see the productions that we're involved in, and they are West End worthy productions. We have the Palladium costumes and sets, and I sit there during the tech rehearsal, and I sit there and watch as like an audience member, thinking, you know, when you think this ain't funny, I'm not funny, and you have those little doubts, and you go, what are you doing this for? I sit there and look what people are saying, and you think, this is incredible. Before we even come on, this is amazing. So you just think it's like I said, they're West End worthy shows. You won't see these shows in the West End.
No.
And you will never hear an audience reaction like what we get. And I think it's about time. And I'm very passionate about this because, you know, what we do, and it's an amalgamation of the acting and the performance and stepping out and being a stand-up comic, then bringing it back in and performing alongside other actors and characters. And also whilst telling a story, it's not easy. It's easy to do it, but it's not easy to get it right. That's the most important.
Exactly. And that's a really interesting point you make, because I think I'm not going to be rude to other people, but over the years, I've seen comics come out and do a comedy spot. Right, yeah. Fair enough. They're good at doing the comedy spot, but the comedy spot doesn't bear any relation to the story that the people have paid to come to see. So now, over I don't know how many years, I make sure I shape the comedy, still gags, but I shape the comedy around the format, the show. You know, if whatever the gag is, say it's about television. Oh, bearing a heart up, getting me an hour off last night, so I watched a bit of telly. Gag, but it's come out of what they're watching. It's still part of the story. Yeah, you
tailor it towards the script. It's got to be relevant. People that come out and just do, oh, there's a bit in my act I do there, chunk. If you don't disguise it, it's like, well, then if you're going to do that, you may as well not wear a costume. You may as well call yourself Andy Ford and Matt Slack rather than Smee or Buttons or Wish You. You're playing a character and you've got to engineer and choreograph the material that fits the story. And also that's what gives you them. I always get my material and what I do. It depends on who I'm working with. So I'll do a whole routine. If I'm working with Steve McFadden, it'll all be like that. It'll be the EastEnders references and all that. So it can be adapted to whoever I'm working alongside. But it's got to be relevant to the story and your surroundings.
And the juxtaposition is, if that's the correct terminology, is we're part of a production. Therefore, when we go out, that first spot can't be 10 minutes of me aren't that great. We have to make everyone around us. I mean, a producer actually said this once in front of the other acts. I think I mentioned it, and said, "Andy Ford, you're here to make them look good." Embarrassing, but actually, I get the sentiment behind it. Everyone has to look good. He wasn't saying I was doing too much. He was saying lift them up when you, and that's part of our job description. Yeah. When we're on stage with someone who maybe is not so au fait with the comedy, we have to play to their strengths and get the best out of them. And you've probably done this as well. I've worked with people and I have to do a comedy double act, and bless them, their skills aren't the same as ours. So I'll set the gag up and go, da, ba, 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 and they have to go, cheddar cheese, laugh. That's fine. That's my job to set it up for them. And the other thing is, I'm not, when I say that, I'm not saying that, oh God, we have to help these people. I don't mean that, because it's all skill sets, and it's a joy to work alongside them and know that you're both coming across and doing a good show. That's a bit convoluted, but do you agree with this?
Totally, mate. Well, it's being generous as a performer. When you think most comics, and this is why...
Secure in yourself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when you go out on your own, and as a comic, you go out on your own, and it's you and the audience. That's the double act kind of thing. It's you and it. When you're working alongside other people, you rely on, and like you say, if someone's not... Of course not, someone's not going to have the same ability as you. So it can seem to be a little bit one-sided, but we're always going to get the laughs because people love to laugh, and that's why they love you. But I think if you're generous, I always look at it, and I've said this to before, I've had lots of people. I remember one, who was it? Stephanie Beecham. We did Snow White, my first time at the Hippodrome.
Stephanie Beecham?
Yeah, Stephanie, I'm stood there going, this is Stephanie Beecham. And she looked at me and said, nobody's laughing at me. They're all looking at you and laughing. And I just said, well, because that's my character. I said, but we are in the same scene. We are together in this scene. Without you, if you weren't here, it wouldn't be what it is. And I wouldn't be doing what I can do without you being here. So whoever you're on stage in that scene with is integral. We may be stealing the laughs and taking it over here and there, and they think, oh, he's ad-libbing this and that. It's just us doing what we do because we know our craft, we've learnt it, and we've honed it. But it's got everyone's got a feeling.
We want them to enjoy themselves at the same time.
Exactly, and we have to enjoy it. And you never want cast members going, oh God, or switching off whilst we go and try and steal a scene. It's not about that. It's plenty of room. It's about understanding what the audience, which is also, it's difficult in rehearsals sometimes. When there's no audience, other cast members who don't know what you do, they can find it difficult sometimes. Oh, what's going on there? Why is that funny? Then when they see it live and they hear the response, then they go, I get it now. I get it. And we need that. That's the only sort of form of theatre where that audience is an essential part of the show.
But they're in the show.
They're in the show. Without the audience, it's a waste of time.
And because we've got the experience now, we don't do like we used to years ago. And tell me if you agree with this. You get to rehearsal and start unbelieving in it, because when you do it 6 times to 4 people and there's no laugh, we now know there's a laugh there. So we can save. And know that it's going to work when we get it in front of an audience. But it's
I mean, I do still
coming
get
into
that.
the business. Sorry, Matt, go.
I still have that sort of insecurity. If I've written a new routine that's brand spanking new,
oh yeah, of course.
Then I sort of go, oh, I'm not sure about this. And you're even in the dress rehearsal, you're going, oh God, because everyone's heard it umpteen times and no one's laughing.
Yeah,
you're thinking,
remember how you felt the first time you wrote it. The first time you wrote it, it made you laugh. So hold on to that belief through the rehearsal period. I mean, you can still hone it in rehearsals, but because you wouldn't put it in, Matt, if it didn't make you laugh originally. No,
totally. You've got to, exactly, mate. You've got to have that. And it's not arrogance. It's not cockiness saying this will work, don't worry. It's just being professional and knowing what you do does work because you do it time and time again. And it's proven. And I think sometimes we're all, myself in particular, we're too hard on ourselves and you beat yourself up a little bit. You think, oh, because I'm a perfectionist, and that's the reason why, you know, as I'm sure you are, you're proud of what you do and you want it to be the best you can and you want it to make it look as effortless as you can. And that's the biggest compliment you can get paid. If people think you're just running around ad-libbing, then it's a huge compliment. Yeah, you have a ball up there. Well, I wouldn't mind getting paid for that. All you do is do a few silly gags and run around. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Plus nights. That gag doesn't work. I need a gag to finish that routine, else it's going to fall flat on it. You know. But they don't have to see that. They don't have to see it. But it's nice when they understand it and when they appreciate it. It's very nice when people give you a compliment, I always say, well, thank you. It may look easy, but believe you me, if they saw the process, they'd understand. Well, there's actually a lot more to it than what meets the eye. It's a craft, and it's like you say, sleepless nights. This is interesting, just lifting the lid off of it a little bit and know that the smiley person that we is actually sits down and prepares. Let's talk about our favorite pescatarian, because we've both worked with Steve McFadden, who's just the loveliest of guys. And I was so nervous working with him first time because I knew that he created this wonderful sort of double acting thing with you. And I thought, and I'm not Matt Slack, I'm a completely different style comedy. Is it still going to work? He was generosity personified, but speaks of you so highly, mate. Oh, that's good, mate. And listen, you got no worries. With your style, like you know, I've always been a fan from years ago of what you do, and it's perfect. And you're the perfect character for panto, and to be the sidekick like Smee, and to work along Steve. Like you say, I did panto. We were in Woking. I think it was about 2003. Yeah. When I first was working with Steve, and he was really nervous. He'd done panto before, but years ago. So it was his first one. He had a terrible boating accident. He had staples in his arm. Oh God! And, he was in a bad way. So he had to learn to sword fight with his left hand rather than his right hand. And he came up to me and he was like, I've not done this before, so I have done it, but I'm a bit nervous. And I just said, look. And he wanted to really play it truth. So he wanted to play hook. And I said, look, whatever you do, just remember, this isn't the National Theatre. People have come to see Steve McFadden, but they've more so come to see Phil Mitchell. They want to see a bit of Phil Mitchell. I said, so what you do, don't panic. Give him a bit of Phil, and then you can do you get out of the way, then you can do it. And I said, whatever you do, don't fight me. Go with me. And I said, I'll hold your hand. Don't worry. Come with me. If you go against me, they'll see it and they won't like it. And ever since then, Steve felt at ease. We had a laugh, and I said, if something goes wrong, don't worry. This isn't EastEnders. We're not on a set. We're not. We can have a laugh. We've got license to have a laugh, and I will try and make you laugh. But it's also like, I know he's a very serious actor, and he's a brilliant actor, and he's one of my best mates. I mean, he's best man at a wedding whenever we can do down to it. And he's so generous, and he's such a lovely man. And I think once he's got once he's confident that he knows he's safe, he's just a joy. I mean, I used to stand there. I'm stood there on stage with, Phil Mitchell, and I'm ripping the arse out of him. Proper, like, I'm ripping into him, and I didn't hold back. I really went for him, and he's just laughing, and they love it. They roar, and you get away with it. He's a mate. He's one of my best friends.
When we met up in Plymouth for the launch of our pantomime down there, and I'd met him briefly when I was working with Barbara Windsor at Bristol Hippodrome. He came in and we had a little bit of a chat. Beautiful and lovely Barbara. There'll never be another.
Yeah.
And so we're meeting up for this launch in Plymouth, and I said to him, Steve, I've got a couple ideas of stuff that I'd like you to try with me comedically. How do you feel about that? And he said to me, whatever you want me to do, I'll do, Andy. I trust you. And this was day one, right? And I thought, you can't ask for more than that. And I've got that from Henry Winkler and David Hasselhoff and
Well, you know why, mate? It's what's great is when there's no ego. And as long as you're, like you say, as long as you're generous, I mean, sometimes it can be difficult because they're setting it up for you to get the laugh. But I always say, it's a combination. And I always write these routines around, because I put a lot of impressions in, and I give them keywords to feed me. But I said, just think of it as at that moment in time, we're a double act.
Yeah.
And whatever laughs I'm getting, it's not just mine. It's our laughs, because you're integral, like I said, you're integral to this scene. So it's just nice to meet people like Steve, like you say. I've never worked with.
He's an angel. Let's flip it slightly, because I know you've done this, and I did it this year, and I was nervous this year, but it was a real joy. And I know this year, unfortunately, your Birmingham panto didn't happen. Then you were going to be at Bristol, it didn't happen. Then you were going to be at Woking, and it didn't happen. Blah blah. Oh. I was one of the lucky ones that did panto this year.
Yeah.
And I worked with Les Dennis, fellow comedian, and I've seen lovely pictures of you with Julian Clary. So this is a completely different scenario. Did you work bits with Julian Clary, or were your characters separate? And if you worked together, what was that like? I find the experience working with Les this year, who's very generous, fantastic. I was so nervous because I thought, well, I don't want to step on what he's doing, and he was the same with me, but we just found that lovely middle ground. How did you get on with Julian?
Well, I think it's a fine line, mate, but when you're a nice person like you are, and it's clear if you're a nice guy, and you've got to be professional, and everyone's got an ego to a certain extent, you have to, but when you're a decent performer and a generous performer, it's fine. I've always said it's a massive stage, and there's room for all of us. And I want everyone to be as good as it possibly can be. I mean, when I work with Julian, Julian is just, he's the loveliest guy you could ever meet. And he waltzes on backstage, and he'll say, "Hello, what did you have for lunch?" And he's so normal. And then when he's on stage, this genius sort of appears. And then he'll go off and he'll make a little comment and go. And it's really bizarre to watch. And we only had a few scenes together. That was the year my voice went. So I was in a bad way. I was on a real down, and I was thinking this ain't good enough. Luckily, I was wrong, and the audience loved the show. We had rave reviews, and that didn't matter too much. So I wasn't in the best place, but it was still a joy to work with Julian. He's an absolute master. I'd love to work with him again. And I think it's great, like you say, there's no ego, because we're different. You're different styles. Me and you could work together. As we were
talking, I'm thinking, yeah, we would, because the personalities are so stark and different. And it's fine for, lots of comedy double acts over the years have both been funny. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, Ernie Wise was hilarious, for goodness sake. And how people think that he was a straight man. He gave so much more to that double act than just do the line. No, he was a funny character and so. Yeah, I think that would work. So it was just something I wanted to touch on, because I'd seen the pictures of you with Julian and I was interested.
Yeah. I'll be honest. At certain, I mean, we didn't do it. We didn't do that much together. But when we did, it just works because, like you say, my style and part of me is as daft as you. And with him alongside, because he's so static and he's just a presence.
He brings people to him, doesn't he, when he talks?
Totally. He's just he commands it.
Get it? He stands there and it says, "Come to me," and they do.
Yeah, and they do love him, but it was a different kind of. It's a force. So if you've got a force that's going that way, and you've got another force that they do sort of marry, and it works. It works brilliantly. Like I said, look at Ant and Dec. Ant and Dec. Some people will find Ant funnier than Dec. Neither of them are comedians, but they're very funny and very good at what they do.
They're warm. The personalities are lovely. You know, you're confident. Your grand can watch them. They're allowed to be a bit cheeky. There are lads, and
exactly.
People sometimes, particularly people in our business, will write that off as saying, "Well, they're not really comedians." Who cares?
Who cares? Yeah.
People love them, and you know, basically, you're good if the people that watch you think you're good. So that's
and if people laugh, I've always said it. You don't have to be called. You know, you don't have to show comedian on your passport. If you make people laugh, it's comedic. Whether you class a comedian, I mean, I don't class myself. I don't call myself a comedian anymore. I'm a panto comedian. And then outside of it, I do the acting as well. So
we can say that now. You can say panto comedian, and people don't go.
Yeah,
panto comedian is highbrow. Actually, it's really intricate, and it's now appreciated more than it ever was, I think. And when you see, some people are calling Julian Clary a panto comedian because he does the Palladium every year. I wouldn't put people into boxes, but being the lead comic in a production of pantomime is something to really shout from the rooftops and be proud of.
Oh, it is, mate. I'll tell you why, because not everyone can do it. I mean, you see a lot of, you know, the stand-up circuit has boomed. Stand-up comedy, they fill arenas, and it's great. And there's some brilliant stand-up comics out there. And I never say never. But I look at it and go, that's not my genre. That's not my cup of tea. You crack on with that. I'll do this. And we've had a lot. I mean, when I first went to Birmingham, we had Joe Brand come along. Who else came? Sarah Millican came, and they were gobsmacked.
They appreciate it.
Mate, honestly, the response, the conversation I had with them afterwards was, I mean, John Thompson came, and they were like, they're a bit blown away by it, because I didn't realise I don't think they realised how funny it could be or how up to date it could be. Like, it's just because it's got that. I hate the word pantomime. When people the word pantomime is associated with cheesy, a bit naff. It's not. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And I never let it be. It's up to date, and it's all good quality stuff.
And I'm sure they notice in rehearsals how technical it all is. I mean, this is proper theatre, you know, all down to choreography and direction and the way stage management work it. And our position in it, we take really seriously. So it's a joy to me to know that people like Joe Brown and Sarah Millican come in and go, well, this really is right. So
well,
go on.
I think it's also, I mean, a lot of stuff I do, if I use like, I've got a real connection with lighting and sound. So I'm nothing without the sound guy. If he's not bang on it, I won't get a laugh. So it's very technical, especially the stuff I do. And I'll tell you what would have been nice. Yeah. What would have been nice this year was to see Jason Mansford. He was going to do Manchester.
With Billy,
and I'd have loved for him, I'd have loved for him to do it, because I think
he would have learned a lot from Billy as well about the genre.
Exactly. And like Billy was he's 70 now, and Billy's been, perfect for panto. He's been a panto star for years, and like you say, new people coming in, it's good for them to experience.
Billy, for panto, I think. He's one of the guys that made panto the new black, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I remember watching Billy.
And clips of ball as well.
Yeah, exactly, mate. They're just funny people, and it seemed to be like, it's only pantomime. No, these were the places where you could. I mean, back then they would do parts of their act, and it would just be that. But it has evolved, and been so many great comedians that happen to do pantomime. But like I said before, not every comic can do it. It's not about stand-up material. It's about being funny to all generations, and that's quite unique. It's not easy.
Let's just do something for a couple of minutes here. Just assuming that I'll probably advertise this.
I'm not taking my clothes off.
Hooray! 2, 3, 4. Not only a great pantomime comic, but someone that cares about it. There will be people that have been drawn to our conversation today, I'm assuming, that love panto. And I often get people contacting me that say, I want to be a pantomime comedian. Give me your advice. So let's give them our advice. What would you say if someone has done a little bit of stand-up, tried it out or whatever, maybe performs an andram, but wants to eventually end up where we are? What would your advice be?
I think my advice would be just work hard. You've got to really love it and really love it. The key ingredients for sorry?
Go and watch it. Go and watch people do it.
Yeah, well, that's how I learn. You go and watch. I mean, and also I think my advice would be find your own self. Find who you are as a performer. When I started out, I'd watch, remember David Copperfield, Three of a Kind? I used to watch, I sat there as a bluecoat, and I'd started mimicking him. When I watched Brian Conley, I started with it. Everything was similar to him. Barrymore, I used to start. So yes, you're going to sort of lean towards people's different styles, but then all of a sudden through the year, you start to become, this is me.
It goes into the pot, doesn't it? It goes into the pot, and then out pops Matt Slack.
Exactly.
Slightly in dough, but yeah, it all goes in, and out it comes, and this is me. And then when you've made that fantastic discovery, and I always say, only do what makes you laugh. If you don't think it's funny, don't perform it, because you won't believe in it. So you've got the amalgamation of all the people you want. You've gone to see Billy, you've gone to see Matt, you've come to see me. I love that style, I love that. Let's do that, or try that bit of that. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. Now you've got to polish that character and work him and keep believing in him. He might change just slightly, and he might have to change depending on the production that he's in. But you've got to find him first. Then you get exactly what you said, work on it.
And I'd also say my advice would be always what we've been given in pantomime, which a lot of comics don't get that opportunity because they're used to standing on stage on their own. You've got a director, right? So you've got someone that it took me years to sit back and trust. What we think we know it all. We think this is about it. Trust the person who's at the helm. Give them the respect. They're the director, and I've directed now, and I know what it's like. So
me too.
I must have been a complete pain in the ass sometimes. You don't mean to be.
Well, you're like to be growing up.
Exactly, and because you're passionate about it, especially if it's something that you've created or you know what you want to do. So, but I would also say trust the eyes that are out there. Trust in yourself, because if you weren't funny in the first place, you wouldn't be wearing the costume. So just trust it. Less is more. Know when to get off. Know when to go. That's enough. Keaton, could have watched you for no. Bye. You want more? Come back.
Exactly. I mean, occasionally I feel like I'm on stage too often sometimes, and I actually said one year to the producer, I think I'm out there too much. Because every time you come out, you have to keep topping, And there's that fine balance between people can't wait to see you and, oh, he's great. What, again? Okay. You know, it's
a fine line, mate. Yeah. I mean, you know yourself. I mean, what I've found over the last 7 years at the Hippodrome Birmingham, the popularity's grown so much, and now I've got a big following. People that come back just to see me, which is a lovely position to be in. But when I first started there, I did one opening little spot, then I did a little bit here, and then a bit in act, and I was done. So it built and built. Now it feels like I'm never off. And I have said, again, the producer might, we've got to be careful not to over expose, because like you say, if it feels like, oh God, here he is again, but they want you on, it's like, well, but just feel the rest of it. You want the audience to be waiting for you to come on. And it's a fine line. It's a fine line of tipping that scales of like, he's on too much or.
Yeah. And I was going to say the other thing that helps, if the times that you come out there, each time it's a slightly different scenario with other characters, and maybe it's a sad bit with Cinderella, or it's a horrible bit with the ugly, so that you're still being you, but you're in a different situation. That helps with being able to come out a bit more often. But if it's the same every time, you know, it's following yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a repetition kind of thing. I mean, that's the beauty of. I've always said, and sometimes we get accused of losing the story in pantomime, and I've always said we should pull it right back, start telling the story, make the story funny. Just put a lot of work in. That's my advice.
Well, my wife has always said to me, pantomime is the star. So my question to you is, what is your happy place, and how does the support of your girl help you with your career?
No, that's a brilliant question, Andy. I mean, I'm due to get. I've been with my. We are married. We had a wedding last year because of the lockdown. We were due to get married in Girona in Spain, but we postponed it because of the COVID, and it's supposed to happen this June, and it's a nightmare. I won't go into it.
But you did it anyway.
You what?
You did it anyway. You got married.
We did it anyway. If I could turn the camera, my view. There's a church at the bottom, so we got legally wed right down there.
Wow.
So we wake up every morning, we see the place we got married. It's lovely, and then we're going to have a big celebration in Girona, a nice 14th century castle. But it's all gone, pear-shaped at the minute. But we've been together 9 years. She was dance captain in Cinderella. Me and Leslie Joseph, and I'd been married before, divorced, and I was just not interested. I got sort of burnt, and I wasn't ready for that kind of thing again. Anyway, we just here we are, living together. And I couldn't exist. I don't want to say it too loud because she's in the other room. Don't want to big her up, but I couldn't do what I do. Even the comedy. If I'm sat here and I start rocking and going this and that, and I'm so miserable at times. I'm terrible. I don't want to shatter the illusion for the public, but I can be real hard work. And I run everything by her. You need someone, whether it's a writing part. You need someone, otherwise you go around in a circle. You start picking it, and you go, no, and then you end up where you started off. So she's a fantastic help in that way, and also in general in life. She's just my.
So reaction when I don't know if it's the same for you, but with me, if I tell a joke to my missus, what about this? And I do it to her. If I get this, work on it. If I get this, it's a woofer. So what do you think as reaction? Because they live it every day with us, don't they? Well, I just come in to see the show once a year. Yeah. They live it.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, they say, oh, what's he like? Oh, he must be so... And she's like, no, it's not. I mean, we do... She does say to me, I make her laugh every day. We're having sex at a time. That's unfortunate. But, but no, I'm joking. I'll say something to her, but she's really logical. She's like working with Mr. Spock. It's like telling Spock a joke, and you go, and she'll go, no, don't get it. So I sort of go, I'm not going to bother you with this one, but other things, she's brilliant because she works as a choreographer, she's assistant director in shows, so she sees something that you or I possibly wouldn't see.
Yeah,
so I take, you know what I mean? She brings that to the table, and she'll come up with some great ideas. And I go, what was that? And she'd always say, that was my idea. That was my idea. I mean, one year, it's like I did a song sheet with the kids. I did Flashbang What, the song. All lined up, and I went, here we are for a photograph. And she came up with that song. I thought, that'll never work. But it did, and it was great, and I put props with it.
It sounds like you're married to my wife.
Did she not tell you?
So I get exactly the same. But having said all that, without her support, I wouldn't still be doing this. You have to be grounded, mate, don't you, to be able to go out and do what we do, because it's so over the top and so big that it has to start it up. We can't be like that. I'd want to punch myself in the face if I was my panto character.
Oh, exactly. You get on your own nerves, don't you? I mean, I'd tell you, to be honest, that's why I gave it up years ago. That's why I stopped sort of gigging and all that, because I was getting really down. I was taking it all too serious, and it was like, I thought, no, this ain't for me anymore.
Life's too short, buddy.
Exactly. Especially at the minute, mate, you've got to do what makes you happy. And just because I get a lot of people say, well, why do you do stand-up? Why don't you? And I'm like, because I don't have to and I don't want to. And just because you can do something, I can make a nice bloody souffle, but I'm not going to, because I don't have to. I can't actually. I'm crap at cooking. But, you know what I'm saying? If something doesn't make you, or doing panto, it's hard work now. It is a job, but I still love it. And you've got to love it. Even when the stress is there, it's hard work. But I fell out of love with going out and doing an act on my own as Matt Slack. I just didn't, I don't know. Weird, isn't it?
Do what makes you happy. Otherwise, you won't do it to the best of your ability. I would just like to say, what a joy, and I hope people have got a fair bit out of this conversation. I know I have. We haven't sort of really worked with each other or spent as much time together as I would like to have. I think you're a great guy. You're really funny. You're passionate, which I love. And I hear great things for people you work with than I work with. So thank you, Matt, for coming on the show today, sharing your skill sets plus your happiness and why you do it. Thank you so much, buddy. And I hope Panto comes back strong this year, and Birmingham's going to be a joy. Go and see him, because he's just the best.
And likewise, Andy, everything you just said, I'll chuck it right back at you. I've always been a big fan. And it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I hope it wasn't too serious, but life is serious at the minute.
Yeah, it is.
Life is serious, isn't it?
A smile gets you through, mate, doesn't it?
It does. Well, you've picked me up today, mate. So thank you very much. And like you said, let's hope we can get back and give people the joy of panto very, very soon.
Matt Slack, thanks, buddy.
Andy Ford, you take care.